Welcome to Time to Teach with Tammy, the podcast that gives tips, advice, and suggestions to teachers by a real teacher. So sit back and enjoy. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And we're back. Welcome to episode E84 of Time to Teach. Today's episode is entitled Season Finale, Summer Learning. So clearly by the title, I think it's clear that today's episode is the day that I say goodbye for the summer. I've been waiting for the right moment, and I feel it is the right moment. I do have to apologize because last week, typically we publish every Sunday, and I did not publish a new episode. Last Sunday, basically I was gone, went on a girls' trip out of town, and it was just kind of a busy time. Usually if I'm not going to have an episode, I try to get some kind of audio out just to let you know that, hey, there won't be an episode. But it was just such a busy week with end of year things that were due, and then I left right after school on a Friday. I could have done it, but my priorities were somewhere else. And so anyway, I just wanted to explain why there was not a episode published last week, and that is why. And so again, this will be the last episode of the season. We will be back probably in September sometime. But I just, the very beginning of the school year is super, super busy. So I usually kind of, wait before I get on a consistent schedule. So sometime in September, I won't be able to give you dates until I get closer to it because I just don't know. It just really depends on what's going on. But I will say I may do some sporadic bonus episodes during the summer. I think I had planned to maybe do some last summer, and I just really ended up doing kind of a digital detox from my podcast. As you guys know, or at least if you listen regularly, the podcast pretty much follows my own teaching and vacations during the school year. So if I'm on break, Time to Teach is on break. It just works out nicely. I do believe in taking breaks, and I think it's good. It will give everyone a chance to catch up on episodes from Time to Teach that maybe you haven't listened to, or enjoy some other podcasts. I know I myself am subscribed to over 300 podcasts. Obviously, I don't actively listen to all of them. I go through phases of what I'm into, so I might binge on one podcast for a time, or maybe a couple, because you only have so much time in the day. So it's always kind of good. I find this good for some of the podcasts that I listen to that are kind of seasonal, like some of the NPR podcasts. Those tend to be seasonal ones. It's nice when they go on break because it allows me to listen to other things. So yeah, so that's the plan. We are going to hit the summer run-in. So let's go ahead and get into what today's episode is actually about. And I don't think today's episode will be very long. So summer learning, just some of the ways that we can keep learning over the summer. And I just want to begin by saying, I believe that taking rest and relaxing is very important. So please know that when I'm talking about summer learning, I'm saying that with also the understanding and advocating even that you should also take time to relax and take time just for you. So when you plan on your summer learning, you plan that, but away from the relaxation time. So I just want to get that out. I'm not saying that all summer you should be working like a dog. You should be, honing your skills. That's really not what I believe. I do believe that any vacation, it's very healthy to take you time. I do the same for me, and I feel like I'm a better person because of it. And then at the end of the day, I'm a better teacher for it too, because there is something said to having nothing to do and just kind of relaxing and doing those things that we need to do. So, yeah. So just keep that in mind as I go into summer learning. So lots of different ways to keep learning and growing as educators during the summer. Many teachers will go to conferences. One summer, when was it? Maybe 2015. Maybe it was 2017. No, I think it was 2015. Time goes by so quickly. I was very lucky. My school sent me to New York. I got to go to Columbia to the Teachers College and do a week-long reading workshop with Lucy Calkins and her crew. That was amazing. I know a lot of people do the ISTE thing, different summits, lots of different conferences. I feel like because I'm an international teacher, maybe what I have access to is a little more limited, because I am in a Spanish-speaking country, and I could probably find some Spanish-speaking conferences to go to, but I'd really rather just learn in my native language. And obviously, because I'm in a Spanish-speaking country, I'm going to find fewer of those. So, in that case, it's perhaps a little more limiting, but not totally limited. There's lots of English conferences here in Mexico, especially in the bigger cities, because we do have, a foreign population. I teach at an international school. International teaching is a thing. So if you are not familiar with that, it is a thing. And that also means that there are conferences. The international teaching community will host some of those, but it is obviously going to be more limited as opposed to living in an English-speaking country and just having higher access to that kind of stuff. So obviously that's one type of learning format that if you are able to take advantage of, always a good thing, whether your school provides it or it's one that you can fund yourself. I think we always need to be seeking those learning opportunities, and while it's great that our schools can provide some of those things, I do think that there is a responsibility on the individual as well to seek opportunities and fund when possible and, as it becomes available. So all kind of depending on what those opportunities are. But definitely we have a responsibility to seek out learning possibilities as well. We educators do. Let's see, moving on. I'm kind of going off of some things that I do myself and plan on doing. I did an episode quite a while back about why you should be on Twitter. I just think connecting as an educator is so largely important. There are probably other ways to connect. I know some educators are into Instagram, although I feel like that's probably a more difficult way to connect because there's not so much of the collaborative piece, which is why specifically I think Twitter and Twitter chats are so great. It just seems like the format that so many educators are on. If there is an educator and they're connected, they're going to be connected on Twitter. It's just a great way to connect with other people, to engage in conversations. So that's one of the things that I love, not just during the summer, the whole school year, but obviously especially during the summer. So yeah, definitely say Twitter chats are the way to go. Some that I love, there's one on Thursday, I want to say it's at 8 o'clock Central Time, called Mastery Chat, #Mastery Chat. So that's a great one. It's just a lot of just really about mastery, and the hosts are into something called the grid method. Now I'm going to be honest, I don't know that much about it. the actual grid method itself, but that's kind of the great thing about it. You don't have to actually be using that method to participate. Everyone is welcome in the chat, which is really what I find for most chats. Even when chats are specific to geographical locations, everyone's very inviting. I've been involved in chats that were, in Texas and who knows where else, and I've always been like, ooh, is it okay if I participate? I actually reside down in Mexico. I've never had anyone say no. Everyone's always more than welcome to have anyone participate. The more the merrier. So that's a good one. PD for you and me, that's PD, the number 4, you as in the letter U, and spelled out, me spelled out. That one is on Saturday. I want to say 7:30 Central Time. That one is, I thoroughly enjoy that chat, but in terms of participating, it's a hit or miss for me, because usually that's about my wake up time on a Saturday, 7:30, and then getting up, getting my coffee, getting the computer on. That's the whole thing, people. It is a whole process. So but if you can make it, absolutely, it's a great one, and they have different topics. I'm trying to remember what in the world is today's topic about. Cannot for the life of me even remember what today's topic was, but it was a good one. I promise you that. Even though my short-term memory will not allow me to remember it in this moment, it was a good one. So I do like that one. Let's see. Edu Gladiators. When is that? That's also a Saturday morning. I hit most of mine on Saturday morning. 8 or 8:30. Let me go into my Google Calendar. Yes, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock Central Time. 8 a.m. Central Time. Just a really, really good one. Lots of different questions that they will pose. And they also have a Facebook group, although I don't know how active, it seems like it's a relatively new Facebook group to go along with it. And I don't see a whole lot of activity, but I also know that somehow in Facebook's algorithm, maybe you're only seeing things that you're really expressing interest in, and because it's a newer one, or at least I'm new to that Facebook group. Again, I'm talking about Twitter, but they have a connecting Facebook group, which I should mention. So does Mastery Chat, which is called Teach Better, or the Teach Better team. I don't know, but anyway, I think it's newer, so maybe I'm just not seeing it pop up on my Facebook. I could go in there and be more active, I suppose, in the Edu Gladiators Facebook chat, but I'm just really not. But that's another good one. I really, really like that one. Right after that one is, let's see, there are a couple. So let's see, I think right after Edu Gladiator, or it might even kind of be like in the middle, is Lead Lab. There are quite a few books called, it will begin with something like lead or teach, and that LAP, L-A-P, is like a pirate. These are books that are put on, published by someone who is a teacher or used to be a teacher and started publishing himself his own books, and then now others will publish through him. So I guess he's got his own publishing company now. Wish I could remember more of the names, but I just see them all the time in Twitter, so I don't know. But anyway, that's what you'll see, quite a few chats with LAP as the ending, and that's what it stands for, like a pirate. So this is Lead Like a Pirate, and I always find in this chat it's a lot of leaders, so you're going to see principals, assistant principals. I participate. I'm a grade level leader. I don't know if that's the kind of leader that they had in mind, but I think really, again, anyone is welcome. There's no anyone who's been like, oh, I'm a classroom teacher, maybe they don't have a leader type title. I think we're all at the point where we're all really leaders, so I think in any sense it can work out. But I appreciate this group because most of their chats, in fact, are ones where they're posing questions where I really have to think. They're not super obvious questions, and you really have to kind of like, well, okay, how would I do that? Or how do I do that? So I really can appreciate that chat because it's one that kind of pushes my thinking, and I do like that. So those are ones that I am really particularly involved in. Like I said, Saturday tends to be my day where I'm really involved. I try to hit a couple other, well, the mastery one on Thursday, and haven't hit it this last week, maybe the last two, can't even remember, but always try to get a couple in on Saturday. But I just find it's really good to be involved, and then you get a lot of good ideas from other people who are in the same field. A lot of things that I try in my classroom are things that people have mentioned in Twitter chats, shared ideas, and brought up different ways of doing things, and I've tried it. So yeah, it's just another way to keep your learning going. And if you're not on Twitter or you're not actively participating in Twitter, then hey, let your summer be a summer that you kind of dabble in it. Like I said, I did a podcast on Twitter and really why you should be connected and involved in Twitter. And I just think that, if you're not, you let this summer be the summer that you get your feet wet, because it is definitely where you should be. Okay, next item, a very obvious one, but books. I'm a big reader. I read a new book every month. That's not really a lot compared to some people who are like reading tons and tons of books. But I do believe, even though there's so many great ways to consume information and learn, books is still one of my favorite ways. It's not my only favorite way, and it's definitely, if you're someone who you find, reading is not your preferred method, I would say give reading a chance and don't give up on it, because I really think the more you read, the better you're of a reader, of course, you're going to be, but also the more you're going to get out of it. You're going to enjoy it more. So I think if you just keep at it, because I have heard adults who have said things like, how do I get my students to love reading when I'm not really a reader myself? And I'm sure there are many different ideas and opinions on this, especially since we're living in a day and age where, you can do a lot of the same type of thinking and get a lot of the same kind of information through other ways. But I don't know. I have to say, I think there's something about reading, and I would encourage any educator to be involved in the reading world. I don't know. I think that's so important. So reading. And what I like to do, because when you kind of look at books that you might be interested in, and you, especially if you start asking, like, what are your favorite books, it can be overwhelming. Everybody has their own idea. A lot of times I'll get reading book ideas from teachers. What I like to do is in my Amazon account, most of us are familiar with Amazon now, you can keep a wish list, and I just keep adding books to my wish list. So in some ways it's discouraging because it seems to be a never-ending list, because I am always adding to it. But I do believe that it is just such a great way to get information. So I would say, read some books this summer. Just kind of I'm looking at my list right now. I'll read you a couple of titles that I have on my list. The Future of Humanity, Terraforming Mars, Interstellar Travel, Immortality, and Our Destiny Beyond Earth. That's one title. The Future of the Mind, The Scientific Quest to Understand, Enhance, and Empower the Mind. You're probably seeing a pattern there. Yes, I am incredibly intrigued by the mind and the brain. Another book that I have on my wish list, Language at the Speed of Sight, How We Read, Why So Many Can't, and What Can Be Done About It. Reading in the Brain, The New Science of How We Read. Proust and the Squid, The Story and Science of the Reading Brain. So what happens is, like, a lot of times I will hear books referenced in podcasts, or I will hear it mentioned through Twitter, and then I just immediately go into my wish list and I will add it. Like, now looking at some of these titles, I couldn't always tell you exactly what was the genesis of where I necessarily heard about the book, but clearly looking at these titles, I know these are, topics that I'm very interested in. Here's another one, Spontaneous Evolution by Bruce Lipton. Last summer, I talked to you guys about the Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, so I know immediately I would have added him because I'm already intrigued by his work and I want to read more about him. Here's another one, 6 Thinking Hats, How to Teach Quantum Physics to Your Dog. Yeah, I will be teaching quantum physics to my dog in the future. Dying to Be Me, The Innovator's Mindset. So I just keep adding to my list, and then when I'm ready to buy a new book, or I've ran out of reading materials, then I just go and at this point, I do Kindle more than buying paper books, and this is partly because I do live down in Mexico, and I'm always have in the mindset of one day I might be going back home to California, and I just, the fewer things I have, the better for me. And especially for books that take up so much space. I love books and I love to reread them. So Kindle has just, once you get used to it and you train yourself to read digitally, something I did not think I would ever enjoy, but I do. But once you get past that and you get to the point, then you kind of just stick to Kindle because it's an easy way. It's not going to take up space, and then you still have it. You can go back to it at any time. So yeah, so books, I'm going to throw that out there. Read books and challenge yourself. If you do not think that you can be someone who reads, challenge yourself. Read one book this summer. But I would also encourage, try to make it a habit. If you're listening to this, you're an educator, and I think we got to be doing that. Okay, next on my list, I already kind of alluded to it, Facebook groups. So many of these Twitter chats have Facebook groups, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Twitter chat. So that's where a couple of my groups have come from. But I'm also involved in other Facebook groups. Like there's one for Fountas and Pinnell. I'm in that. I think I'm in a couple for Lucy Calkins Reading and Writing Workshop. I think I'm in a couple of hers. I think she has some kind of based on grade levels. I'm in another one for kindergarten and first grade teachers. So I get a lot of really, really great ideas from them. And then, of course, anytime I have a question, I can go in there, I can post. It's just really great. Oh, and an example of when that might happen, I actually just experienced that today. I am trying to do some cosmetic changes to my classroom for next year, but it's really involving, moving where I have my projector and the screen and the whiteboard and our gathering place. So it's kind of, even though it's just cosmetic, there's a lot involved, and the assistant principal asked for a floor plan. So I was trying to think, well, what's the best way to do, like I can do a hand one, but I really don't want to do a handwritten one. I want to do one that's more digital, and I just needed help brainstorming what, a good resource to do that. And I actually went to the Mastery Chat, which is not called Mastery. It's just Mastery Chat on Twitter. They are Teach Better, I think, Teach Better group. Anyway, I went to them and I had several of them say use Google Drawings, and I thought, oh yeah, why did I not think of that? Because I do like Google Drawings and I do like anything Google. So I was able to come up with a floor plan, and it was thanks to this Facebook group that kind of helped me think through how I was going to do this, or at least like what digital resource would I use to create it. So they are good. And even if you don't have a question, just joining a group and then kind of going through some of the threads. And then after you've been a participant of the group, eventually you're going to see things. They're going to have questions. People bring up topics. You're going to do a lot of accidental learning, which is sometimes the best learning. Intentional learning as well is needed, but a lot of the accidental learning is really how I feel like I've grown as an educator, just things that I have accidentally learned and picked up along the way. So join yourself a Facebook group. Okay, what else do I have on the list? I've mentioned this before because this is something that I like to do almost all the time, but intentionally and specifically during summer it's kind of two parts. Number one, figure out something that you're interested in learning, something that you really is new for you, and research that topic and learn what you can in the summer. So let me give you an example. I've talked before during the school year, I have been dabbling in makerspace. Okay, I might be late to the game. That's not what we're talking about. So even if I'm late to the game, I'm still there, but I need to do some learning. I need to figure it out. So my idea this past school year, we're talking the 18-19 school year, was really incorporating makerspace and STEAM. And I dabbled in it, and it was great and it was wonderful, but now I'm ready to take it to the next level. But taking it to the next level is really going to involve some deeper learning. So I'm going to be working on that. And then also incorporating some new generation science standards, because we are really trying to incorporate more of that in my school. Even though I'm an international teacher and I'm teaching down in Mexico, we are an American school and we follow a U.S. curriculum and we use Common Core and apparently now new generation, which I think is good. I think all these things are good, but I need to learn more about it. So that's kind of my topic that I'm really going to be very intentional about this summer, because I want to be able to really do those things. And I think that's kind of what you got to do. Every year you want to improve a little bit, so you need to choose something that you want to learn about and focus on and set your energy there. It doesn't mean that you won't put your energy anywhere else, but it just means that you're making the decision to put the majority of your energy there. Just a little more focused. So that's that. And then the sort of related piece to that is choosing something, a topic that you wouldn't necessarily be interested in. So for me last summer, it kind of was decluttering, because I kind of got into that. I had a TA who really helped me declutter a lot of things in my classroom. So I started becoming a little more interested in it, but it's a topic that I wouldn't necessarily have been all about. And I spent some time listening to podcasts about it. And I must say, it really piqued my interest enough to where I have done major decluttering this year, you guys. You would be amazed. I mean, the thing is just being in a classroom where you've had international teachers and you've had things accumulated. And the reality is, when these teachers go back to their country, they're not really taking things with them. So they kind of get left behind. So you end up with a lot of things in the classroom. And in the beginning, when I first started, I didn't know what I could keep, what I could toss, or even, the how-to behind it. Is there a protocol? I knew nothing. So I just kind of ended up having so many things in the classroom. But within the last couple of years, and I really believe it's because I kind of pursued this topic that wasn't something that I would normally be super into, but because my TA kind of helped me, I kind of wanted to continue that journey and learn more about it. So I chose decluttering as a topic for me to kind of learn about. and listened to some podcasts over the summer. And this year, I think because that was in the back of my mind, even though it wasn't a focused interest and it wasn't a focused area in which I was going to place my energy, I still ended up doing that. And then I think now with like this new floor plan that I have for next year, I think I'm going to another level. So I don't know, maybe I'll pursue, I don't know, interior design and research that a little bit, even though that's not really an interest. But if you see where I'm going with this, the whole idea is choose something that you wouldn't necessarily be interested in and just kind of expand your horizon. Something that, like I'm always interested in psychology. I'm always interested in the brain. I'm always interested in literacy. So those are natural things I'm going to learn about because I'm always interested. But choosing things that I'm not necessarily drawn to, like for example, let's go back to the interior design. I'm going to broaden my horizons. I'm going to grow myself a little bit as a person. Am I going to become an expert? Absolutely not. But I might be able to tell you a little bit something more, maybe on color theory, and I don't know what else would be involved in that. But it's just a way to kind of grow yourself as a person. You're going to know a little more surface level probably, but a little more on a topic that you wouldn't have naturally been interested in. So that's another little tidbit. And of course, you can do that by any of the sources that we're talking about on today's podcast: books, groups, Twitter, you name it, you got it. And then lastly, I've mentioned this, thrown this out in today's episode even, but podcasts, definitely one of my most favorite ways to consume information is through podcasts. I mean, I can listen to hours and hours of podcasts. I primarily listen to health and fitness, and I recently discovered a new podcast, which is like health and fitness, and there were 110 episodes, you guys. I listened to all 110 episodes in the span of 3 weeks while I'm working. I mean, I don't listen while I'm working, but I mean, I was still teaching. I'm now on summer break, but at this time I was still working. So I do not listen to podcasts during the school day because obviously I'm teaching. So that just tells you my time at that point was even more limited than it is currently. And I got through 110 episodes in a 3-week period. I was literally listening every single chance that I got. In the mornings, in the evenings, episode after episode after episode. So, yeah, definitely my favorite way to consume information. That's how I got into podcasting. I've mentioned this, but I'll say it again. I first really kind of started out through blogging, and I still have my blog and I refer to it even in this podcast, but that's kind of how I started sharing, and I've always found it to be, well, first of all, I love language, so just the act of writing is something that I thoroughly enjoy. So in some ways it's therapeutic, but I'm very passionate about education that it's a great way for me to just kind of think through what I'm doing and share with the world. So that's what I really was doing for a while. And then, several years ago, a very good friend of mine, she kept talking about these podcasts she was listening to, and I was like, what is a podcast? What is that word that's coming out of your mouth? I don't really know. And then so she was the one who introduced me to podcasts, and as soon as she introduced me to podcasts, I was like, wow, this is where it's at. And I just started, I became an avid podcast listener. And as I was doing that, maybe like a year into listening, I was kind of thinking, wow, what a great way to share what I usually share via my blogs, my blog posts, do it in this kind of format. Um, yeah, so that's really how I got interested in that. But there's so many different podcasts out there on education. Really all you have to do is just look up a topic of interest and you probably will not be short of options. And I thought this would be the last one, but as I was talking, I remembered, oh yeah, blog posts. There are so many blogs. So reading blogs, finding blogs that speak to your interest, is another great way to keep up your learning this summer. But that's it, you guys. I am going to end it right there. We'll go into our wins and fails for the week. Well, I would say really a couple of wins. One win would be that the school year is completed, and that feels really good. So yes, it's exciting, sad, but exciting. And, now knowing that I have a full summer to just really kind of relax and have some downtime is, really, really good. Another win I would say is I'm really excited for next school year because I have kind of a new floor plan. I've mentioned this already in this podcast, but I'm kind of excited for how that's going to be. It's going to be a change because really my classroom I've pretty much set it up the same way the whole time I've been here, which I think next year will be year 8. So I'm excited to have it set up a little bit differently. That's kind of exciting to me. So we will see how that goes. Fails, I don't know. Still not really feeling like there were any huge fails. So, yeah. Well, I guess we'll just end it on that. Okay, well, if you have anything else you'd like to add to today's topic, any other ways that you like to learn during the summer, I'd love to hear from you. You can tweet to me. I am on Twitter at TammyJ123. That's at TAMIJ123. Don't forget, this episode is really kind of kicking off summer break. So Time to Teach will be back in September. I might not, but might put out some bonus episodes during the summer, but don't count on it. Don't bet on it. It might not happen. But in any case, have an excellent summer. You may not be listening to this in the summer, but if you are, have an excellent summer. And until next time.
Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Before you go, don't forget you can catch our show notes online at www.timetoteach.libsyn. That's libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook at Time to Teach. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Teachers for Effective Curriculum. And if you're an educator with your own podcast show, I invite you to join our brand new Facebook group, Teachers Who Podcast. Let's grow a community where we can network, problem solve, and discuss anything and everything podcast related. I'll see you there.